On Daf Pei Daled Amid Beis, the 10th parak begins, Eluhein HaNechnokim. And I learned this parak when I was a youngster in Rav Soloveitchik's class in the summertime up in Boston. I'm going to try to get a hold of my notes. Unfortunately, I gave them to someone else, so try to see if I can get a hold of them. And we're talking about the Chiyuv Misa of Chenek, Eluhein HaNechnokim. So the following are Chiyuv Misa Bechenek. Hamake Ovi Ve'imo, V'gonev Nefesh MiYisrael, V'zoken Mamre, Al Pi Bezdin, Unovi Sheker, V'amisnabe B'Shem Avodas Kochovim V'abol Eishes Ish V'zobe Bas Kohen Ubol. So these are the cases of someone who is condemned to death if he has Eidim Vasra, and that's the death of Chenek. Okay, he has a little bit of an introduction here in footnote number 1, Aleph, and he says that this parak is the 10th parak. And it comes after the parak Hanisrafim, which deals with the list of those who are Chayv Misa Sreifa. And immediately after that, we have the parak that deals with those who are Chayv Misas Chenek. Now, we're going through the Seder of Misas Bezdin, and the last of the 4 misos that are covered by the Mishnayos in Masechet Sanhedrin is the Misa of Chenek. However, in the Mishnayos, it appears as the 11th parak. And that means that Chelek comes before Hanichnokim. So that means that parak Chelek is the 10th parak and Hanichnokim is the 11th parak. The Ran writes that parak HaNisrafim includes the Onesh Chamur. And it's so Chamur that, let's say, for example, in the case of Boal Ramis, we have Kanoim Pogimbo, which is a sugya back on Daf Pei Aleph Amid Beis, and that means you could put this person to death even without Bezdin. Now, Parak Chelek is going to address those who have such a severe punishment that they forfeit their place in the world to come. And therefore, that Parak Chelek belongs, in a sense, as the tag-on to Parak HaNisrafim, because Parak HaNisrafim has the Chumrah that we can put him to death without Bezdin. And then following suit is the Chumrah of Chelek, which means those who lost their share in the world to come. Okay, let's just go over the list again. We have Maka of Ve'imo, and the Gemara is going to explain where we know this from, that Yechayv Chenek. We have Zokin Mamre, and it says Al Pi Bezdin, which means that this is the High Court of Israel, the Sanhedrin HaGadol, that sits in the Lishkas HaGozis. And the word Mamre means Mamrim Hayisem Im Hashem, and this is the Zaken who rebels against the High Court of Israel. Novi Sheker, he says in the name of God that he had such a nevuah, but he fabricates the nevuah. Misnabi B'Shem Avodas Kochovim, V'abol Eishesish V'zomeve Bas Kohen Ubol. So the last case is a little bit more complicated. We're talking about 2 Eidim that testified against someone that had a relationship with a married woman, That's okay. Then we have Zomime Bas Kohen. So here, the Eidim testified against the Bas Kohen. She was married, and they testified that she had znus. Now, two other Eidim come in and say Madu Ayisim, so we believe the Mazimim and the Zomimim are subject to the law of Kasher Zoma. And here we have a difference between the Boel and the Nevelis. The Nevelis, who's a Bas Kohen, is condemned to the death of Sreifa. The Boel, however, is Chayav Chenek. And now the Eidim could be Chayav either based on what they wanted to mete out to the Bas Kohen herself, which would mean Sreifa, or they would get the punishment that they wanted to mete out to the Boel, and that's the Misa of Chenek. Now, Chenek is Kal, and Sreifa is Chamur. So the question now is, should we upgrade the punishment of these Eidim Zomimim or downgrade it? Should we upgrade it to the level of the Bas Kohen, which would mean Sreifa, or downgrade it to the level of the Boel, who's Chayav only Chenek? And the Mishnah establishes that they will get the punishment that they wanted to mete out to the Boel, which is Chenek, and not the punishment they wanted to mete out to the Niveles, which would be Sreifa, the Bas Kohen herself. And this we're going to learn from the Pasuk, Vasisam lo kashazomam lasos li achiv, and the Gemara is going to darshan li achiv v'lo lachoso. So they would be put to death with the Misa that they wanted to be Chayav the Boel, which is Chenek, rather than the Misa that they wanted to be Chayav the Neve'eles, meaning the Bas Kohen, which is Sreifa. Now, why is the Boel Chayav Chenek, which is a lower kind of Misa, whereas the Neve'eles, the Bas Kohen herself, is Chayav Sreifa? In all other cases of a Boel Isha, the same punishment is meted out to both the Boel and the Nevelis. And the Boel will be put to death with the same identical Misa of the Nevelis. But the Gemara is going to explain that in this particular case, we're going to derive from the Pasuk that the Bas Kohen, ki seichel liznos, es avia hi mechaleles. So in addition to the terrible immoral act that she was guilty of, there's another guilt here, and that she is desecrating her father's Kedusha, his Kedushas Kohen. And that lends itself to the increment here between the punishment of Chenek and the punishment of Sreifa. But that's only applicable to the Bas Kohen, to the Neveles. She'll get Sreifa, but not the Boel. Boel's only Chayav Chenek. And now we're saying that the Eidim Zomim are Chayav Chenek like the Boel, and not Sreifa like the Bas Kohen, the Neveles. The Gemara says, Maka over ve'imo, minolan. How do we know that the punishment to be meted out to one who wounds his father or his mother is chenek? Dichsiv umake avi ve'imo mos yumas v'chol misa amur b'torah stam ena ela chenek. Now, how do we know that Misa Hamura Batorah is Chenek, if it's Stam? So that's based on a Gemara earlier on Nun Beis Amid Beis, and there are two shitos amongst the Amoraim. According to Rav Oshia, we cannot mete out a Misa Chamura without a specific explicit source in the Torah. So if the Torah doesn't explicitly mention which Misa we should mete out, then we go to the least of all the severe Misos, the fourth on the list, and that is Chenek. Now again, all this reflects the Shita of the Chachamim against Rabbi Shimon. Back on Daf Mem Tesem and Beis, that Chenek is the Misa Kala. But Rabbi Shimon is of the opinion that the lightest Misa of the four is Sayif. So again, in the case of Stam Misa, we want to mete out the Misa Kala with a Kuf, and that, according to the Chachamim, is Chenek. According to Reb Shimon, the Misa Kala is going to be Sayif. And our Mishnah reflects the Shita of the Chacham against Rabbi Shimon. And as the Gemara says, Kol Misa Amur B'Tor B'Stam Ein El Chenek, that is the Shita's Chacham. So Stam means we take the least severe of all the Misos, and that's going to be Chenek according to the Chacham. So the Gemara asks, Ema, when it says that Maka Aviv is Chayiv Misa, can it mean Ad Kotale Miktal? Maybe it means when he kills his father. So the Gemara asks, Salke Daitach, can you entertain the possibility that Maka Aviv is only Chayiv until he kills his father? Kotal Chad, if he kills anybody, he would be put to death with Sayif. Aviv, which is more chamur, bechenek. He should be put to death with chenek. If he's a murderer, what difference does it make if he murders anyone, Ploni Almoni, or he murders his own father? I think that's called in English fratricide or something like that. You know, we go back to Shakespeare. So why would the Torah lower the level of his chiyuv from Sayif to Chenek? And again, we're going to the Chachamim, just because he killed his father. Had he killed someone else, he would only be Chayiv Sayif.
A person by the art scroll, they quote the Rambam that it's just Chenek is halacha Moshe
Misinai.
Yes.
It sounds like the Rambam wants to reconcile even with Reb Shimon, meaning that even though according to Reb Shimon, Sayif is Misa Kala, but yet we have Allah Lamosh Misinai that Yechayev Chenek. Our Gemara says Misa Amur B'Torah Stam is Chayev Chenek. Maybe the Rambam is learning that itself is derived from Allah Lamosh Misinai. I don't know. So the Gemara says the following: according to Chachamim, who hold that in comparing Sayif to Chenek, Chenek is relatively kal. So therefore, Maka Aviv could not be referring to murdering your father, because how could we give him a Misa Kala vis-a-vis killing anyone? anyone else, he gets sayif, and here for killing his father, he gets chedek, which is kal. That's impossible. But if we go like Rav Shimon, that in comparing chenek and sayif, chenek is more chamur, Michael Meimer. Maybe the Torah is saying that if he kills his father, we upgrade his misa to a more severe misa, we give him chenek. So meaning, how would Rav Shimon know that in the case of Makah Aviv, he did not kill his father? And therefore the Gemara rejects or rescinds its original position. It cannot be that the source is based on this logic that we have to be more machmir if he kills his father than if he killed someone else. Elamid chsiv make ish v'meis mos yumas. And that's a pasuk in Mishpat. Uksiv, and the Torah at the end of Sefer Bamidbar says, O bi'eva hiko biyado v'yamos. Okay, so what does this mean? Bi'eva hiko, he smites, I guess if you can use that word, out of Eva. Shmamino kol heichad hika kostam lav misahu. The Torah had to go out of its way to add the two words mos yumas or vayamos, consistently telling us that makeh means he murdered him, that the victim of his hakah died. And all this I know from the fact that the Torah says Makah and Vames, Makah and Viomos. But the word Makah itself, without the extra Umes, means that he hit him. That's Hakah, but he didn't kill him. So we're basically analyzing like biblical terminology, and we're saying that the term Makah in and of itself means a Hakah without Misa, without causing his death. And how do I know this? Because the Torah had to add the words Vames or Yumas or Vayamos in order to establish that this was a Hakah sheyesh ba Misa. But the word Hakah per se, without the addition of Vayamos, is Lav Misa. That's not referring to Misa. Now, why did the Gemara quote two psukim? To prove the point that Makah means Lav Misa in Stam. Gemara quoted the pasuk in Shmos, Makah ish v'meis mos yumas, and an additional pasuk in Bamidbar, O bi'eva hiko biyado v'yamos. So this question is addressed in footnote number Yud. He says, "Hayinu omrim shaTorah kosva pama achas b'mefurish misa k'dei shemisham neda lekol makom shestama ka hi misa." The Torah could have indicated that hakah means misa, that you killed him, if it would have only in one occasion explicitly mentioned misa. So the Gemara quotes two psukim, and from that we're going to derive the conclusion that whenever it says hakah, it doesn't mean that he killed him. Now, the first of the two psukim was Make Ishva Meis Mos Yumas. And a Rotzeach B'Mezid is put to death. Now the Gemara is going to be bothered by another pasuk, which seems to be superfluous, in Vayikol Lamed Hey. And there it says, Kol Maki Nefesh L'fi Eidim Yitzach Es HaRotzeach. So why do we need these two psukim? They're repetitive. Itzrich lemichtav make ish, v'itzrich lemichtav kol make nefesh. The ikos of Rachmana. If the Torah had only written make ish v'meis, that's a pasuk in Shmos. Hava, I would have said ish tibar mitzvah in. If he kills a gadol who's chayv in mitzvahs, then he's put to death. But katan, who's not mechuyev in mitzvahs, lo. We're not going to put him to death for murdering a child. Even though you and I would probably say that murdering a child is even worse than murdering an adult, but nevertheless, he's not a bar mitzvah. Kosa Rachmana, the pasuk says, Kol Maked Nefesh. It doesn't say ish, it says nefesh. Even a cotton is considered a nefesh. The Kosa Rachmana. And if the Torah would have just said, Kol Maked Nefesh, Havamina shafilu nefolim, afilu ben shmon. Nefesh includes anyone who's a nefesh, and even an ubar who is not going to survive, but nevertheless he still has the status of a nefesh. I mean that's something that we have to analyze. And certainly in the case of a ben shmona, he's born after 8 months, he can live, he can survive. So he's not called a gavra ketila, he's not called a stillborn. He can survive. And therefore, the Torah says, kol maken nefesh. So this baby that's born after 8 months of pregnancy is a nefesh. Is therefore tzrichi. So again, we need kol maken nefesh to teach us that he's chayav for killing a katan. If we had kol maken nefesh, we would say even an ubar, even a neifel, and even a ben shmon. But since the Torah says kol make ish, the Torah is coming to exclude a nefel and a ben shmona. So apparently what I told you before is not right. A ben shmona is not going to survive. He has the same status as a nefel. And someone who murders the ben shmona, or for that matter, the nefel, is not chayiv because the pasuk says kol make ish. That an nefel and an ubar ben shmona is not included under ish. So we need both nefesh and odom. Okay, I'm going to stop here at this point. But all right, we made a little bit of askola here on the 10th parak, and we'll see. It's an experiment. We'll see how it goes, okay? So let's just review. So tomorrow we'll meet a mitzvah at 9, and then we'll see about the rest of the week how that's going to work out. Okay, then? Let's have a great day.